Hey, Eugene.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I've been meaning to catch you.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because I'm always...
We're ready? We're good? We're on? Okay, good. Welcome to the Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting, December 18th, 2014. We'll start by asking our Town Administrator, Dave Williams, to read the agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first thing we'll do is vote to approve or amend the agenda and add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance, and I'm not aware of any of those items. Then we'll have a public comment period, and then consideration of cemetery commission appointment, and then consideration of treasurer items, which includes an internal borrowing in anticipation of receipt of Chapter 90 funds, and extension of useful life for the purpose of long-term borrowing. And then consideration of various license actions. And that includes liquor licenses, common victualler, Class 2 used car, and stable licenses. And then a consideration of intermunicipal funding agreement, or at least a review of it, for the FY 2016 capital for the school department. And then we'll talk about the FY 16 budget and warrant process, update on personnel and staffing, set the next meeting for Monday, January 5th, 2015, or discuss a possible other date, and then discuss a held item regarding Leland Farms held check from December 11th, 2014 meeting.
Okay, do we have any agenda amendments?
None here.
Okay,
I'd like to remove the police department capital vehicle request.
okay. That's, the chief is not around?
He's not available today and tomorrow, and we rescheduled it for January 5th.
Okay,
And I believe I distributed the materials for that item in advance.
right, okay. Okay, do we have a motion to second the agenda?
Second?
I don't know, if maybe I have to move it, you
So I'll
said?
move to approve the agenda as amended to remove that police capital vehicle.
Okay, and I'll second. Any further discussion?
Well, under discussion, I have a continuing objection on technical and procedural grounds
Okay,
to the objection, to the agenda.
duly noted. All in favor of the agenda? All right, so it's 2-0. Against? 1. 2-1. Okay, next item is public comment. Do we have any public comment today, Diane? Nobody signed up? Okay. Look at this, we're catching up. Look, we're a minute ahead.
Nicely done, Mr. Chairman.
It's a time machine.
Okay, is the cemetery commission here?
I'm here. The chairman, we had it scheduled going to the cemetery commission meeting, because we have a meeting as well, for 6:30. So
Okay.
there's a disconnect or a miscommunication
Okay.
there, because I believe you had it scheduled earlier. Chucky is not here, she's the chairwoman.
I guess we can move on to the next item for now, which is the consideration of treasurer items, the internal borrowing. David, why don't you tell us what we're doing here?
Sure. There were a couple of projects that were done recently in the fall, and they were Chapter 90 approved projects for Goulding Street East and Butler Street, both approved by Mass Highway. And instead of doing an external long-term borrowing, because the amounts were generally smaller, we were going to do an internal borrowing. So the amount would be for Butler Street, $18,645.98. In Goulding Street East, $24,657.50. And basically, this goes on the books. It has to be paid back before June 30th, 2015, before the end of the fiscal year. And if the Chapter 90 funds don't come in by that time, then we would have to go out to an external short-term borrowing. But it's just much easier, since we already did a borrowing for a couple of $100,000 on a larger project, just to borrow from ourselves for this money, since we have the cash flow right now.
Okay, and this, David, this is work that's already been done, is that what you're telling us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The work was approved by Mass Highway and was already completed. The bills are ready to be paid. So to pay the bills, we either approve the internal borrowing, or we go to an external borrowing and get the funds in advance of the Chapter 90 money coming in.
Okay, and what's this town detail officer piece of this?
The detail piece?
Yeah, there's a detail officer, 259 and 74 cents. Is that part of this? This was included with my
Yes.
borrowing, but I don't see it, I don't
Should
see
be
it on
added
the...
into the total.
It's part of the 24,000,
It is? Okay.
917. This sheet right here, Mike?
Yeah,
See, it's right there.
24,657 plus this, got it. Okay, so it didn't make its way onto the spreadsheet, that's what I was looking for.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if I have the same thing you do, do I?
I don't know what,
No, I don't think I do.
you're right, it's not on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Actually, the,
It's on the front, it's on the cover
Yes.
sheet. Okay. All right, so that was just added in after the fact?
so the fact sheet, the amount would actually be 24,917.24.
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Yeah. I don't know why that wasn't on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
But the amount approved by Chapter 90 was 24,917.24, and those are the funds that we're getting in, so that's, covers the amount that we're paying out. So the amount should be, for Golding Street East, should be 24,917.24.
And these were Chapter 90 projects we approved in, or less than the amounts we approved,
Yes,
and these are completed projects,
yes.
so we won't have need for
When you
this
say
again.
completed projects, I know Ed, the last time we talked to him about this, confirmed that there will be additional paving on the bridge on East Goulding.
Additional paving in the current year?
Well, I don't know, he's got an inch, about an inch of depression on the bridge, which he said was intentional, and which is going to need to be leveled up.
I don't know when exactly that,
Okay. Does anybody know when that is? No? Traffic safety, know anything about that?
No, as far as, no, we haven't discussed that recently. You're correct, but I think it will be done in the spring.
Okay, but is it done with this money, is what I'm wondering, or is it done sort of out of just general funds?
I would, if it's something he ran into after the approval, then it would be out of his own funds, but,
You would think we'd want to get Chapter 90 money
Yeah,
for it,
it
since
would-
it's part of the same project, and I
Yeah.
don't, I think it was done intentionally, David. I think it was done because he knew the bridge was new and it was going to settle.
right. Then I would say that it would
Jeannie's
have
got some
to-
input on this, I think.
I think the Goulding Street Bridge, I think the bill came in for less than what we'd actually asked Mass Highway for on Goulding Street, so that he might be using the rest of the funds. When we put in for the reimbursement, it will probably say that it's not complete, we're just asking for this round of reimbursement.
Okay, I mean, can we specify that it's not complete? Because I think it's not complete, as far as everything I've been told.
Okay.
I mean, let me ask another stupid question, just because I'm only as good as what I'm looking at sometimes, right? But this form is titled Intent to Begin Chapter 90 Project, but what we're talking about is projects which have been completed and invoiced, so that
Right.
has me, and it's dated December 12/12/14, and then it has attached a copy of the project request, but I take it we don't have that, we just have one page out of three, page 3 out of 6, I guess.
This is
There's 2A, so I just want to be sure we're doing all the right things.
as far as I know, this is a new form that we started using to try to get, so that we would have some sort of documentation that something has been applied for, so we can track these kind of things before they happen like
Show up
this.
to be paid, yeah.
We're doing it as we have in the past, but this isn't how we...
So this is our own form, this is not the form that goes
No.
to the
No, we
state?
have the Chapter 90 forms, but I didn't include those in the packets.
So rather than hold up until we actually get the money, we did the work, we're going to
Right.
get the money now.
Right. But this is supposed to be a tracking sheet that we use internally for tracking a project, but this
Okay.
is new.
Okay.
This is the amount of money we have approved.
Yeah.
So there's more info there, Diane, or?
Yes,
$54,802.
$802 has been approved for Golden.
By the selectmen,
54,802, and this is only 24,000.
By Mass Highway.
by Mass Highway.
Right.
Okay, so this is 24,000, so presumably there's more work still to be done.
So it's not
Okay.
So we'll either be dealing with this same issue in the spring when they're doing it, or Chapter 90 funds will be available.
Exactly, okay.
Gotcha.
Good. Paul, anything on these?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
All right.
Do we have a,
Yes,
what do
so,
you need from us? You need a
He
motion?
needs a suggested motion, so I'll do that. How's that? I
Yep.
move to approve the internal borrowing items as proposed by the treasurer and to repay such internal borrowing no later than June 30th, 2015. In the event Chapter 90 funds have not been received by that time, the internal borrowing shall be paid off through the proceeds of a short-term anticipation note in advance of Chapter 90 funds due to the town.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. And then we probably have to sign something. I
This
assume.
is for the amended corrected amount, right?
What did you read?
I read this payment, and then we have separately, we're changing the year, the useful life, right, David?
That's a different.
That's a
That's a
separate
different issue. Yeah.
item, yeah.
Yeah, we want to make sure, Paul's point, we want to make sure it's 24,917.24 and 18,645.98. Is that what you read?
I didn't read the amounts, I've just read,
You just read the motion? All right, well, those are the amounts.
the internal borrowing items as proposed by the treasurer.
Okay, and those are the amounts.
Yep.
All right, good.
The other
Something
item,
to sign now, David, or not?
no,
Okay.
no, this is, I will just have to sign. The other item is, we have to report to, before we go out to long-term borrow, the useful life of, that we want to go out for the fire ladder truck and the snow fighter dump truck. The amounts are $1,075,000 in total, and normally you'd go out 5 years on a vehicle, but the useful life of these vehicles are easily 10 years. So it requires a selectman vote to extend the borrowing out 10 years for those two items.
Okay.
If we run into a problem with that, bond council could reject it at some point, but I'm recommending now that we at least approve up to 10 years.
And what's the purpose of these other items being listed on here?
Those would be the regular amounts. I think they're 3 or 5 years for other equipment, but they haven't been filled in. So it's only these two items that our financial analyst needed, whether we were going to do something other than what the statute provides.
And are you recommending 10 years? Do we have some basis for recommending 10 years on these?
Other than that, the past vehicles have lasted that same length of time, and she said it's standard for those kind of vehicles to be going longer than the 5 years.
Okay.
And the amounts we're authorizing, or is listed here, those are what were approved at last year's town meeting as capital items.
Right.
But those aren't necessarily what these items will cost, and thus the funding that will be needed. But we're approving the amounts voted on,
Right.
right, versus let's say the fire truck's 800 grand instead of 900.
Right. The vote is for the useful life.
We're really just dealing with the useful life. But we're also, if I read this, we're approving a long-term borrowing.
No, the borrowing has to come back to you in another form.
Okay.
I'm confused, David. These are 2013 borrowings, or this is 2014?
Authorized by the vote of the town.
14.
The vote of the town
Ladder
passed
truck.
May 4th, 2013. I think that was 14?
Yeah, the ladder truck was
14.
definitely 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the motion is to approve the long-term borrowing.
Yeah.
I have the same question that Peter had. We're not actually going to borrow 900,000. We're
No.
going to borrow 800,000.
No, right.
Can we just approve the 10-year life and not approve the borrowing?
You're not borrowing 800,000. You're going to be borrowing more than 800,000 because the vehicle came in around 800,000. That doesn't include outfitting the truck, so it's going to be some amount above that.
So we're approving the long-term borrowing for a period of up to 10 years. So we're really approving the capital item, the length of the useful life.
The intent is to approve borrowing up to 10 years for those
Okay,
that's what requires the vote, is going beyond the statute.
okay.
All right, so then I move to approve the long-term borrowing of the items noted for a period of up to 10 years, as recommended by the treasurer, as being an adequate and justifiable estimate of the useful life of these items, which is 5 years longer than the statutory allowance.
I second.
Okay, and just to clarify for everybody, this is Article 8, Item 1, the fire ladder truck. Article 8, Item 3, the snow fighter dump truck. Do we have to do a roll call on this, or this is, we just do a majority vote?
I only have to report that the vote was taken.
Great,
so-
okay, good. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye, okay, good. All right. Thank you, David, for getting that in front of us. All right, so we can go back to the Cemetery Commission, and I think we'll probably have a lot of procedural discussions here, but that is the item on the agenda. When we were here a week ago, we asked the Cemetery Commission to attend this meeting so we could have a joint meeting in which we considered appointment to fill a vacant seat on the Cemetery Commission. That appointment would be filled by majority vote of the combined boards, the members who are present. If you want to sit up at that table, that's probably, that way we can hear everybody.
I was told 6:30, I'm sorry.
No, that's no problem. We got, as you can see, we got a lot of stuff done.
I don't look on the internet, so if they don't tell me, I don't know.
That's okay.
You're here, so do it.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff done, so.
Okay, good. Yes,
Okay,
we are calling our meeting of the Cemetery Commission to order.
okay, very good.
Posted meeting.
Maybe, Chucky, explain what you're looking to have done here. I think it started with your board in terms of you have a vacancy.
Yes, one of our
and-
members passed away, and we're looking to fill that position until the next election in May.
Okay, so it's an elected board. You have a nominee for that position?
We do. Susan Tyler?
Okay. And I'm not sure how to proceed here, other than to take a motion. I guess that'll get things started, if somebody wants to make a motion about Susan Tyler, appointing her to that position.
So, second.
Okay, so we have a motion second. Now we can have discussion. Is there any discussion?
On discussion, I had objected on procedural and technical grounds because all the requirements hadn't been met.
Okay.
I understand it was referred to town council, and town council essentially agreed.
Okay. I think town council agreed, but had a different opinion of what needed to be done.
They had a slightly different opinion on what we were, as far as the newspaper publishing. I mean,
Right.
there was agreement on the 7-day notification. So we've had, it's interpretation of that 7-day notification that is primarily at issue.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess my view on this is we've given 7 days' notice twice. We've announced this at a public meeting 2 weeks running. This is an appointment to the cemetery board, which will be a position that'll be elected in May. There's no, I don't think there's any interest being compromised. If there's a technicality that's not even clear, whether there is a technicality in terms of the form of notice. We've got one opinion from a member of this board, we've got one opinion from town council, and I guess I'm proposing a different opinion, which is that notice means notice. And I'm comfortable voting on this tonight, and I understand that Paul's not. And I don't know where others are, but that's the issue, at least the procedural threshold issue in front of us.
Yeah, I was glad we got town council to weigh in. I'm still a little confused. I think that the two ways I read it is, one is the question of whether there's been proper procedure followed in noticing by written form the cemetery commission to come to this meeting to do what we're doing tonight, or attempting to do tonight. I don't know how we didn't do that in a timely manner, since we've been communicating for weeks now. So I would err on the side, and they're here, that's right. So I would err on the side that I think perhaps there's a slight technicality that we're not achieving, but in substance, we're there. Then the second one is noticing the public as to the vacancy, and I think there's been, I think we followed standard practice for the town on vacancies of various committees. and we've been doing that for some period of time. So, but I do value the importance of process and adhering to procedure. This one, though, because it is a short-term appointment, in essence, it's 5 or 6 months at this stage, and the Cemetery Commission sounds like they could use the extra set of hands right away, and they're very highly in favor of the person they put forward. I'm ready to take action.
Okay. Anything else? Any discussion? Okay, so we have a motion.
I spoke about her last time. I think you all know her already.
Yes. We've got a motion and a second in front of us, so all in favor of that appointment? Okay, all opposed? All abstaining? Okay, that's done.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for showing up.
I didn't know about last week
Out of
either.
curiosity, if there's a procedural issue, is that something that has to be clarified by you guys?
No, I think by June, this is all going to be a moot point, right? There's going to be an election. and-
Hey, yeah.
I'm
Or May, I
referring to
mean.
the whole process of there being confusion.
I think he means for any time if this happens again on any.
Yeah, well, and my understanding is this statute has, and I think you heard Paul say it last week, and town council has also said this, that there are multiple views in the municipal legal community about what this statute means, and it's poorly written, and, and I spent some time reading it last night, and I couldn't tell you what kind of notice it calls for, and I know Paul has a view, and I know town council had a view, so I guess, like Peter, I was trying to do something practical tonight.
Yeah, the outcome wouldn't have been different.
But if we can err on the side of caution in the future, I think we should do that.
Can I request a roll call vote?
Yes.
Because I think we had done that
Very
with the Board
good.
of Health.
Okay. Chuck, you want to take a roll call on your board, and then I'll take a roll call here?
Commissioner Hom?
Yes?
Commissioner Blaney, yes?
Okay. Selectman Caruso?
Aye.
Selectman Durensis?
Abstain.
Okay, and Selectman Jamo is aye.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right,
Will
thank
we
you.
get five
Thank you,
lawyers,
Susan.
selectmen?
That could be,
Let
yeah.
me get
Good luck to you.
Absolutely right, Elliot.
Yeah,
Thank
and by
you
the way,
very much.
since the last time I was here, we've done 3 burials, so it's not like.
You guys are busy,
For the
yeah.
holidays.
Yeah, well, you
Yeah.
can't really control that, can you, so? Thank you.
I really appreciate the extra help.
Oh, hey, Chucky, while you're here, it reminded me of why I wanted to talk with you last week. There's been a lot of clearing up there, and there have also been water problems that have been noticed at the school and on the playing fields, and I didn't know if your commission could take a look at those, or maybe has taken a look at those to try to figure out if there's something that could be done, if there's something that was done to change the land up there that might be affecting stormwater. I think there's just a big question about why we're having so many problems, and one thing, and I'm not going to say the one thing, but one thing that has changed pretty significantly in the past year or two is the nature of the land at the top of that hill, which has been, which you've been clearing and using as the next area for the
The
cemetery.
area we've cleaned is not on the hill. The hill's been there 150 years, and the water's always run down it. We've cleared a flat area, and it's
But the
not-
flat area's at the top of the hill, am I right? I mean, I drove up there.
Well,
You
it's-
look down on the school from there.
Yeah, but they always have. And it's cemetery land, and they built the school 3 feet from our border.
Understood.
And the last cemetery meeting we had 2 weeks ago, Frank Hess came representing the school committee, and we talked a lot about this, and he basically said it's been going on for a long time. Doesn't seem to be any worse, it's just that it's there and they're noticing it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't get the view that Frank didn't think it was any worse. In fact, there was a big hubbub a week or two ago with those big storms in terms of
And we
flooding,
have
and
water
Frank
that
was
runs down.
particularly
The water
concerned.
within the cemetery, on the
Yeah.
hill, that runs into the cemetery, we've got 2 potential bids. We're going to write up a formal proposal and go out to get a couple more catch basins. It's possible the town needs to put one at the bottom of the hill. I mean, it's
That
going to
might
rain.
catch some of the drainage, yeah.
It's going to rain. And
Yeah, when you clear an area of vegetation, though, it doesn't absorb rain as readily as it would when there's vegetation. It doesn't slow down the runoff as much, and that's why there are laws and regulations that deal with controlling stormwater in construction projects. And so that's, I guess the question I'm asking is, I think, between your commission, our CM&D department, the school committee,
Right, that's where
I think
there should,
we need to have a discussion. It
This
would
is
be
one
it
of
would
the
be a
things
joint
Sue is
discussion.
really, really good at that,
Okay,
all
good.
of that type of stuff. and
Excellent.
I'm hoping.
There you go, you've got a job already.
No, but she is. She understands
Yeah, no,
the
I know.
roads and the safety and all of that, and I do burials. I don't do,
Okay, all right.
the maintenance as much.
Okay,
So
well,
I'm
anyway,
all
I just
excited.
wanted to raise it, kind of put it out there, and
And if you go up there and look, also, the area we did is actually, it's not a hill, it's very flat, and at the edge of it is quite a steep stone wall, retaining wall, I would call it. So it's very flat with a, what is there, a 6 or 8 foot drop off that wall.
yes, there is.
And one of the things we're talking about is putting some kind of a fence up there just for safety, so that people don't inadvertently walk over it some night when they're up there, because my daughter's going to help us design the whole area.
Uh-huh,
And
okay,
she's a professional.
excellent. Okay, hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
All right, what's next? Licenses. Jeannie, you think it would help to have you up here kind of walking us through this? Are you the one who's closest to this?
Yeah, but I think Josh Resiston is here for...
His is not in the middle of the licensing thing? I
No,
think
his is first.
Separate.
yeah, his is first on licensing, okay. That's
This was,
great.
this was basically correcting the already approved application for an administrative oversight of a checked box that basically puts the property up against the mortgage.
So the box that said Pledge of License wasn't checked, is that what you're
Right.
saying? And now it's checked?
Do we specify the banks in this remarks? I mean, nowhere is it specified, we just allow for pledge. Do we want to be bank specific on that?
You don't need to be.
You don't need to be,
You
okay.
can,
Joshua has the form that needs to be signed.
He's got the original,
Yeah.
okay. all right.
Do-
So this is holding up your closing or something, you want to,
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And we're not creating any obligations or exposures to the town here for this, pledging the list?
no,
Okay,
it's his,
good.
we granted him a license,
Good,
and now he's
yes.
telling the bank that
He has it, and they want to have
in that
security
license.
interest.
They want to
I
get in the
understand
restaurant
that.
business.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And I wasn't here when you were here last,
I
because I
agree.
was talking.
I thought you were in the closet.
I was on my little phone in Alabama, and you sounded like a dolphin, I must say. So it's good to see you.
You too, nice to meet
Yeah.
you, thank you.
no problem.
I
Okay.
second.
Very good, any further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Thank
Excellent.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Do you need us to sign that now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Just a question while you're here. We're renewing all the licenses in the name of the seller,
Yeah,
not your name at all.
correct.
So we all signed?
Is that because,
Okay.
Until everything transfers, till the ABCC approves the transfer. The deal is contingent on the ABCC transferring the license.
all right, so we're going to continue the seller's licenses this tonight.
Yeah. Yeah,
And at some point, it would come back with a change of,
yeah. Once it's approved by their transfer is approved by the ABCC, we will come back and we will get a new form to sign, and it will just have the new owners, and if there's any change in hours or whatever, that you can discuss that then, but I think it'll probably be the same, just new owners will be on the license. But we can't do anything until the ABCC sends us back an approved transfer of license. So the suggestion by Brian Melville at the ABCC was to renew the current license because, let's say, God forbid, whatever, they're not, on January 1st, the Sherborn Inn can still have New Year's brunch and serve Bloody Marys if they haven't passed papers or by then.
Yes, we want to do whatever we can to facilitate this transaction for the benefit of both the buyer and the seller and the community.
Right.
I just wanted to verify that we're not issuing you anything in these papers.
No,
So we are issuing everything back to the
Sherborn Inn,
old
yeah.
owners, not the
Yeah.
new owners.
it was, whether this happened or not, it was still, wasn't going to be able to close before the 6th of before next year anyway.
Okay.
So they would have to.
One thing you can do is sign these forms.
did something happen to the wooden soldier?
I don't know. We've been there frequently, and we always wonder why that wasn't anywhere the sale.
The asset list.
Yeah, hopefully it might disappear.
Mr. Taylor your neighbor has some questions or comments?
Well, my comment, you've heard hundreds of times regarding the Sherborn Inn, and I'm opposed to any licenses or anything to Sherborn Inn. I want the place shut down until they stop shining lights on my house. And I have some assurance that there'll be no outdoor entertainment at the Sherborn Inn, whether the zoning board of appeals approves it or not. As a butter across the street, within 100 feet of the damn place, I am opposed to any activities at the Sherborn Inn until these lights stop shining on my house, or glaring on my house, to my satisfaction, and there'll be no outdoor entertainment.
Okay, and I think that's the man you need to talk with about those issues, since he's going to
We look forward to
be
moving.
running this venture starting in January, it sounds like.
Well, right now, there are lights shining on my house when I left my house tonight. So I'm opposed to, until those lights stop glaring on my house, and I'll say the same for Red Rose's approvals in a few minutes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Elliot. All right, good. Now we're on to the next set of licenses, which is a big, long list.
Yeah, how do you want to proceed? Is there a
Make a
way that I
suggestion.
can make like one or two motions to cover
Yeah, yeah.
Whole
If
groups
we think
rather
we've
than
got, yeah, absolutely.
individually, go through every one separately?
That's,
But I know Peter had a lot of questions.
I did have a lot of questions. I think they've been cleaned up throughout the day. I think it would be helpful if Jeannie, and if he needs to, the chief, so the chief's good, the fire chief's good with all of these locations that are on this list, I think, is what I've now seen in the documentation at this point. You have a couple of open items, I think, Chief, but nothing that would prevent you from recommending that we approve all of these licenses, whether they're liquor licenses, victual license,
stop doing that.
or stable licenses.
Too. That's me too.
Okay, and then Jeannie, I had there were some discrepancies of what the animal control person had on her list that she approved versus what applicants are applying in terms of the numbers of stables. And her list, the animal inspector, had in a few items, and I've identified those to you, a few items which, a few stables where she checked off a smaller number of stables than the applicant has made application for which we're being asked to give a
You mean number of
license.
horses?
Jeannie, could you
yes.
sit over at the table?
Yes,
so-
number of animals, that's right. So if you could just help clear that up, Jeannie, and so we can move this along, because it's a
I got your email
paper.
tonight, and I think I explained most of them as far as the numbers. I send out the memo to all the inspectors the end of August, beginning of November, and at the same time send out the applications to the various homeowners or stable owners. If I do it any sooner, they lose it, and I have to constantly call.
It's automatic.
They go by, the list that I send to the fire chief and to the animal inspector is what they asked for last year.
Okay.
And it comes in, when the applications come in, it can be less or it can be more. If it's less, it's not a big deal. We just change the license and change the list going forward to the next year. If it's more, all I do is I call Kim, I say, this is what they're coming in for, is it enough? One is Tritavian, who is at 12 Ames Drive. They had asked for, last year they had 10, this year they're asking for 16. They've built a very large indoor riding ring, so they're turning a smaller indoor facility at their current stable into 6 more stalls, so Kim is fine with that. Another one I think you brought up was Sweet Meadow. She has had 21 at 111, 4 at Meadowbrook. This year she decided she only wants a stable license on Coolidge Street. Her stable license came in for 27. Kim said that most of her horses are minis, and they always put 2 in a stall, and so she has no problem with 27 horses.
Okay, but see, what I have to look at, Jeannie, is, this is, I think, her work, and she's identified, take that last example, if I can find it here. Here we go. Coolidge Street.
Yep.
She wrote down 25 as far as number of animals.
Right? And then Patty,
But the applicant wants 27. So what I'm struggling with is the inspector has okayed a lower number. There's a couple of other examples there, and I just don't want to mess somebody up here, so
No,
I want you to help me
I think
get
what it,
comfort.
I can tell you right now, George Fisk last year had 25.
And that's what she checked off.
She checked off 30.
No, she didn't.
All right, she did check off 25. George's stable came in at 30.
Yeah, no.
I called her, she said he has plenty of room, he has had up to 38 in certain years. So it's the variations. I mean, if you'd like, I can,
Well, it's just, no, it's fine, I don't want to hold it up, but we're dealing with details,
There
we're
are a
dealing
lot
with
of number
numbers.
discrepancies here
Yeah.
again, yeah.
And so I don't want to mess somebody up.
I mean, if we're going to sign this one, we can't sign this one because it says 27, so we'd have to say 30.
pardon me?
George's, no, that's a different license, I'm sorry.
Take George's, it says 30.
George's says 30, and
But
his-
she
and his-
approved 25.
The other says 25,
She did tell,
that's
when I
right.
called her, when 30 came in, and I called her, and I said that he had come in for 30, she said that was fine. He
Okay.
has room for 30.
Okay.
So that's what we.
So we're going on Jeannie's?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
She had that discussion,
I
yeah.
mean,
that's
I
fine.
mean,
if you want, I
telling
can
us, I
have
think
her go
that's-
back
That's
out
good enough.
again,
Yeah,
or
that's
she
good
can
enough.
write something else.
It's not the end of the world. It's just, that's great.
Yeah, Gene, you mentioned Shertavian before. This agenda at least says 10 horses.
The license came in, they've asked for 16 because they are turning the old turnout barn into stables. They will have 6
And I
more
get that, but I'm
stalls.
just wondering why even on our today's agenda, it still says 10. So did that change today, or is that something that's,
It changed yesterday afternoon.
okay, all right, after this was done?
10 was the, what
10
was
was
posted.
the original, yes. And then Lee came in and they asked for 16.
And that's okay with the animal inspector also?
Yes.
Okay.
And the ones that the chief had on his list that we have no license for, what are those about?
Oh, I think on Netherfields, 65.
Yes, Netherfields and 130 Nason Hill Road.
Nason Hill,
We're on his
130
list, but
Nason
we don't
Hill
have
Road has been
applications.
sold, and it was finalized after the letters went out. So she is not getting a stable license this
So
year.
that'd be for the new owner if they
If
wanted
they-
it.
Right, and Jane Elias has not brought in her application yet.
Okay, and what about Great Rock Road that was not on the chief's list, but the animal inspector did it, and the application is for 12?
At the time of our inspection, there were no horses there, the building was locked up and there was nobody, so we had no way of getting into the building. From the outside, the building looks fine, but they weren't ready
It
for us,
wasn't-
so.
You weren't able
Like,
to do
you
your
can-
inspection?
You can hold that until...
Well, if that hasn't been inspected,
Yeah, you
we
can
probably
hold
have
it.
to hold it. Well, I don't know, we have to, but probably.
Well, it was inspected by the animal inspector.
Well, are we concerned with fire issues too? or-
It seems like all of this discussion is about the stable licenses, so I wonder if there's no objection on the alcohol licenses. Can I move approval for the
Have we
six,
gotten to the alcohol licenses?
like the first at the head of the agenda?
Yep, yes, I'm good, I
We
second.
started at the back end of the horse here, Paul, and we're moving back up to the front now.
You put the horse before...
Well, the chief was able to, the chief confirmed all of those verbally as well as by memo at this stage, so
You get a lot
I
of
second
signing for
those.
these, just to warn you.
I understand.
But if I could, just to kind of move this thing along, when we get to the stable licenses, we can have continued discussion, but I think just in terms of organizing
Sure.
the meeting, we have an agenda that says that there are 6 alcohol licenses, and I know the ABCC is concerned that those get in there on
I
time.
think there's 5 and 1, we're expanding the hours.
That one you don't need to vote.
It's
That-
automatic, it's
You
automatic.
do
It's an
have,
automatic.
you have to sign the Form 43 form.
Right, but it's
Right.
an automatic, they're
Right.
entitled to it as a matter of right. We can't vote no.
Yeah, I
So
just was
it's
pointing
not-
out, we've actually got 5. So we've got 33 North Main, 21 South Main, 29B North Main, 33 North Main, and 33A North Main.
So I move to approve the list you just read.
Second.
Okay, any,
Okay, be ready.
Well, we haven't voted yet.
I
and actually, Gene,
Here we go.
Gene, is this first one correct amend approved license? That's what we just did, right?
Which one?
That's what we just did, this one. Correct, amend, approved license.
Yeah, but that was a different Form 40. That was for the pledge of license.
That's what we did. So I'm saying we
Right,
don't,
we've done that.
all we're doing now is we're approving 21 South Main, 29B North Main, 33 North Main, and 33A North Main with the existing owners. Okay.
And just signing the Form 43 for
Okay.
the increase of hours.
Yep, so we have a motion
We already
from
moved
Paul,
and seconded.
seconded, all in favor? Aye, okay. Great, now we can sign.
Could I-
By the way.
Could I move to approve common victuals licenses for the Sherborn Sandwich Shop, C&L Frosty, and Rustic Pizza?
We have a second on that?
Second, but for discussion, I had a question on 21 South Main, right, because we have no indication of the workers' comp policy on that one.
Right.
And you are not able to get that.
I mean, if you want to sign it on the condition that I release it with the workman's comp form, that's
So
up
could
to
I
you.
amend my motion, if you would, as a second, to issue 2 of the 3, but the third to approve, but to be held subject to delivery of the workers' comp?
Second.
Can I ask a question on that one, David? You've got a note here that says, consider hearing for January 5th, 2015 if needed. What does that mean?
In the past, a new license has been typically advertised as its own with a separate hearing. I believe that's the past practices.
There's a new owner.
Yes.
Right.
Rustic
right,
Pizza is sold.
Right, right.
But in the meantime, just like the discussion I had with the new owner of the Sherborn Inn, until that actually takes place, don't we want to have the old operation continue until closing? Or has the closing already occurred?
You have to refresh my memory.
What, on this?
On the
Rustic
Rustic
Pizza.
Pizza.
Rustic Pizza is just, it's a new owner manager from the Weatheralls. So,
But it's still owned by the Weatherall?
no, well, the building is, the space is, it's just that they are, he's a new owner that is he's taken over the business. But the Weatheralls still own the space. He just rents the space. He just took the business over.
So Jean, is that business currently operating?
Yeah.
Okay, and Paul's point is if we do not vote to renew the license under the existing owners, they won't have a license. Did this ownership change already take place?
Yeah.
So it took place and they didn't come in to get their license amended. So I think they're still operating under the old owner's license, Paul, is the real
But
answer.
it sounds like legally, just speaking off the top of my head, but as a municipal lawyer, the existing owners still own the property and so on, so
Yes, they
this
still own the property.
could be considered as basically a lease of the, not just of the space, but of the business certificate until we issue the new license. But we're going to have to hold a hearing to issue a new license to a new owner.
Okay.
So we can't,
Transfer.
so we can't sign anything now then?
Well, I think we need a,
We don't have a license to sign for the Weatheralls.
No.
well, we have, whatever license was there is going to expire December 31st.
Yes, it is.
So in whose name is the current license?
The current license is Laura Weatherall. The new licensee is Alexander,
Simbanowski.
thank you.
Yeah, so
Only because I'm reading it.
I'm suggesting that we renew the Weatherall license.
I don't know if you
Have they applied to renew?
know.
Paul, is a license issued to the owner of the building or to the operator of the restaurant? That might make a difference.
To the operator of the business.
Okay, so Weatherall is not operating it. It sounds like we've got an unlicensed business that is operating because it didn't bother to transfer its license when they transferred the business.
Yeah.
And so that's the dilemma we have, which is we're now being asked to kind of bring them up to speed by giving them a license, and the information for that license is not
He does,
available.
he has applied, I believe he has his Board of Health licenses. He has applied to them, and they have, I don't know if they've issued it, but he has applied. He's had his inspections, his food inspections.
Okay.
So the only application before us is for the new owner?
Yeah, if you go down, I was there yesterday, all the licenses on the wall are now in his name.
Okay.
But why do you list renewal?
Because it shouldn't have been a renewal.
It says renewal, new owner.
Well, what I'm trying to drive at is, does the new owner's application ask for a renewal of the old license until a new license is issued for him? I'm trying to figure out a way to keep him in business.
This is his application, Paul. It doesn't really say anything.
I was trying to see that.
If we were going to consider meeting again by the end of December, that might,
Well, that was a question I had, is whether we were going to want to meet on the 30th of December, just so there wasn't too much of a gap between now and the 5th of January is the next meeting.
Well, I was going to ask for that if we were going to do the cemetery appointment procedurally correct, to have it done next week, but we've already done that, so why would we have a meeting?
Not to do with this, Paul, only to move along some other things like budgets, selectmen budgets and things like that, which David thinks will be ready by that time.
I'll be around.
Okay. I'll be around also. I think if we had a quick meeting Tuesday night, the 30th,
Okay.
and then if we did that, we could deal with this issue.
Do you want to have a public hearing that night and have him come in?
Is there enough time for notice to a public hearing on that?
I could have it in the Metro West Daily, what's today? Or it could be in Monday. Yeah.
So from the 18th to the 30th is 12 days.
How many would you like, Dave?
I don't know how many you need for
Second.
executives.
I like 10, but we'll go. I don't want to shut the guy down. But it's statutory. What's the statute on the hearings for?
I don't know it off the top of my head. But that's why I noted it. It seemed like it was going to need a hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like Paul, I don't want to shut this down, but it is kind of striking. It always seems to happen, and I ran into it on the zoning board of appeals. People just keep operating if they haven't renewed, and nobody tells them not to operate or to make sure. I mean, no, I know Jeannie reminds them to renew. But so here we've had a transfer and nobody bothered to say, oh, I'm transferring a business, what do I have to do to make sure I'm properly licensed?
Well, I don't want to cut any shortcuts on the notice. I'm a stickler, as you have
I
already.
noticed that.
For, comply, not just complying, but
Yeah.
provide a little margin of error so we don't cut it to the minute or the second. And it sounds like you already have this down for the January 5th.
That
So
was-
he would be 4 days, one of which is New Year's Day. Is he planning to be open?
I doubt for Christmas, and not for New Year's, but if you're going to meet on the 30th, I can get the notice in the paper.
But just make sure, please check to make sure that,
Well, the paper doesn't come out until next Thursday, right?
Yeah, but
Depends on which paper, but they can go online.
You can go Metro West and you get it 2 days.
Metro West.
Metro West, yeah.
I can be
Yes.
in there Monday.
You're saying that to make sure that we get at least 10-day notice.
and comply with, and
So if
comply.
it goes in Monday, that's not enough
It's
time.
not going to be 10 days, it's going to be 8.
What's the statute say?
My recollection was 10 days, but I don't have the statute. So you might check it, and whatever it is, it is.
Elliot, you got a suggestion here?
I have a question.
Okay.
If anything happens over there in the next few days, who is liable? The Board of Selectmen for not issuing the license, or?
No, we're immune.
We're definitely not liable. It's not us.
Well, from what I'm hearing now, they are there open without a license.
It sounds like they're operating
Is that
without a
correct?
victualer's license. Sounds like they are. They've got Board of Health licenses, we're told. I presume they have a zoning.
They are using
The
their owner's
owner's license.
existing license, which is
So that's
good
your
for
answer,
December
Elliot.
31.
Also, another quick question. Have they requested a New Year's Eve open permit, which they have for many past years?
Sure, with the pizza
I've not
guys
been
now?
notified of it.
Yeah, Elliot, now you're talking about the inn, right?
The Sherborn Inn.
We were talking about the pizza place before.
Oh, okay,
That's the one
okay.
without the license.
Okay, I'm
This is
getting-
rustic pizza.
I'm getting my restaurants mixed
That's
up.
okay.
Okay.
But the inn did not request extended hours for New Year's Eve.
Okay, so then they better shut down then.
Okay.
So, well, let's do this in steps. I move approval of C&L Frosty's and Sherborn Sandwich Shop.
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye, okay, good.
And apparently there is no renewal. They would be smart,
They don't need a hearing for a renewal, do they?
right, they would be smart to put in a quickie application to renew the license that they're using right now to cover them until the hearing on the 5th.
These are already.
I would rather see full notice so that the butters, everybody
Right.
has a chance to do it rather than try and wing it on 8 days or less.
All right, so
notice.
you want the Weatheralls
Did you
to
check make
renew
sure
their
this
current
paperwork is
license?
correct?
Yes.
I think not.
Okay, just want to make sure we're signing.
It's a suggestion. They don't have to be using, they don't have to sell pizza for 4 days. They don't
And
want.
you want the public hearing to be on January 5th?
Sure. Is that what we said?
Well, that's what Dave has put down here.
Because we gave him the slot for January 5th already.
Okay, good.
Is there a statute that's for the 10 days or the 7 days or?
There's a statute on common victuals licenses. It's part of chapter 140.
Is this a renewal, though? I can look that
I mean, when I'm
Oh,
reading,
the renewal, there's no need for a public
Notice.
hearing on the renewal.
But chapter 140 says that for new licenses, we have to have a public hearing.
Yeah, somewhere in there, under common victuals licenses. Okay, everybody sign that one. So then can I do the
do some research here.
Class 2 used car dealer's licenses? There's apparently
Yeah, please
3.
do.
And I wanted to be sure that 2 of them, the Sherborn Auto Brokers and the Sherborn Auto Sales, have a affiliated garage.
I'll have the letter tomorrow.
So if I could, I'd divide the question and first move to renew Rose's Automotive's Class 2 license.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Taylor?
As I mentioned
Here we go.
before, and I'll mention again and again and again, I'm opposed to any permits granted to Rose's Garage until they stop shining these 2 mercury vapor lights on my house. Now, the lights will go off in about 10 minutes. They came on at 4:15 this afternoon, and they go off every night about 7:15. And they shine right on my house, and they say, oh, they're only on so many, what, this and that. I says, I don't want to see them on at noontime. These are very bright lights, and I want you all to just go down and stand in my backyard sometime between 4 and 7 the next few days, and say, yeah, I'd be damned if I'd want those shining on my house. And maybe Elliot isn't all crazy.
Have you
But,
asked the building inspector have you filed a complaint with the
I have
building
not
inspector?
filed a complaint with the building inspector. I thought coming to you, and I've mentioned it to Ed Rose, should be enough.
Could I ask the
We have-
town
we have-
administrator to
we had,
check with the building inspector on
we
this?
talked to Ed, and the building inspector has it on the list to go down. I mean, he's been here 2 weeks. So
Okay,
he-
we have a new
it
building
is-
inspector.
Okay, so until those 2 weeks are up, I want the place shut down.
This
Those
is-
lights are very annoying, and
Do the lights go out at some point?
they go out at 7:15. They come on at 4:15. And I don't care if they're on at noontime. I mean, I do care. I don't want them on anytime. I've told them, put your damn lights, mount them on your garage, shine them back toward the woods. And I still don't like that light in the neighborhood. I like to go out and look at the stars at night. But at any rate, all he's gotta do is put them on his garage and shine them back, and not put them on the house and shine them west toward my house.
And we've got
And,
that, we got it.
And I'm really not asking that much. I just wish you'd get down and just say, yeah, this is damn foolishness. Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. Well, we've got a car license here, so it's not a license that has to do with zoning or
Right.
building permits.
Should I call a question?
Yes, please. We had a motion on this one, right?
Yeah, we have a
Okay,
second.
so on favor? Aye,
All
okay.
right, and then on the, I'd like to move up approval of the renewal of the Sherborn Auto Sales and Sherborn Auto Brokers with the condition that they supply to the Board of Selectmen's office licensing agent, whatever your title is, to the designation as required by statute of the affiliated garage.
I read it in the statute today, I found it online. He called his garage, they're gonna put the letter, it should have been here today, he will have it here tomorrow. If
So I
not, he
second.
doesn't get it.
And again, we don't want to shut anybody down, we just want to be sure they comply with the law.
Okay.
Well,
So any further discussion of this? Okay, all in favor? Aye, all right.
that's what happens when you have a lawyer. on the
So that's conditional.
Now, on these stable licenses, I'd like to move approval of all these stable licenses, but I have not a clue now as to what the numbers are.
Yeah.
So this one here, you have to do, it sounds like we agreed to hold one, we agreed to change one from 10 to 16. After that, if you could,
Well, I think based on, the issue I had was the documentation of the animal inspector's review and plus the chief's documentation. So we know that the chief did not get in to inspect 34 Great Rock Road.
We're holding that.
So we're holding that one. And the others where we had fewer horses on the animal inspector's approved checklist than the application is for, we're assured by the licensing agent, if you will, Jeannie Guthrie, that she's spoken to the animal inspector, mentioned the different numbers on the applications, and the animal inspector has expressed her approval of those numbers of
If it would make you
animals.
feel better, I will do up a current numbered list, and I will go over it with Kim again, and she will sign the bottom, and
That would be great, to have that in the
Okay.
file, yeah,
that's fine.
yeah. So I think we have a good list. So, Paul, I think except for, which one is it?
34 Great Rock.
34, the second to last one, Kurt's, 34 Great Rock Road. We're good to go.
all these numbers are correct, but isn't 10 16?
And 10 is 16.
No other numbers change?
We have, Jeannie, should you look at what we have? He's going off of the agenda list.
Let me see.
So I don't know what you've got for, let me see.
All right.
Yeah, so
Here we
May,
go.
so 16,
Shatavian
45.
Shatavian is 16.
Old North Plains, 30,
Horsebrook Farm is 45.
yeah.
She currently has 42.
They're going in
She
order,
wants to
okay.
have 45.
27.
George Fisk currently has 25. He's asking for 30. She's fine with that.
She's fine.
Patty Bouchard has combined her stables. She's asking for 27. Most of hers are minis, so she has his two in a stall.
And she had them in two different locations. This year, we're only doing
Just
one location.
yeah. Mary Barbara Alexander is the same, 7 horses. Susan Bernard is the same, 10 horses. Sandy Niles is the same, 10 horses. Jennifer Cruz is the same, 8. Deborah Greens is the same, 38. And Joan Honorado went from 12 to 8.
And the chief had 188 Maple, but he just had the wrong address. It's
188
190.
Maple is her location. The barn is at 190.
190, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
And the rule is what, 6 horses or more, you have to get a stable license?
It's
Or is
4 or
it-
more.
I thought it was more than 4, maybe that's what I read.
It's
More than 4, so 5 or more. Okay. Good. So do we have a motion, or do we need?
I was hoping you'd make...
So I would move to approve all that we just went through and hold back 34 Great Rock until such time as the
I'll be back
chief
there,
gets
I'll be
to...
back there tomorrow, so, just so that in advance.
Very good. Okay, I'll second that. Or did you already second that?
I seconded it.
Okay.
So how about if I amend, if I friendly amend it, okay? That we do 34 Great Rock Road, subject to the chief's inspection, satisfactory inspection.
I agree with that. I
I
had the
was there
same
last
thought,
year, we
but
had no problem, so I don't anticipate any issues.
Yeah.
I had the same thought, but I thought you said that there were no animals there at all.
I didn't see any, but then again, it was raining, so, she's, obviously, the animal inspector found something, so.
Better safe than sorry. We don't, again,
Exactly.
want to inconvenience anyone.
Yeah,
Yep.
just do that, maybe.
So
So,
you're coming, so they hit it west.
as the
You
seconder,
bet.
I accept the friendly amendment. I think it's a good one.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All
All
right,
here we
good.
go,
Thanks,
races.
Chief.
Jeannie, all
Fellow
right.
got thrown from a horse,
All
they took him to the hospital.
So Jeannie,
Last we know, he was in stable condition.
Ah, that's a good one.
What?
Peter, you should have heard that, Chuck, because that'd be a good one.
I didn't hear that one. What'd you say,
You're
Elliot?
going to want to tell that one.
You don't want to hear that.
It's your type of joke, Peter.
It's my- All right, maybe I'll get it from you later,
The guy
Elliot.
got hurt, thrown from a horse, they took him to the hospital. Last we knew, he was in stable condition.
That's a good one, yeah. That's the kind I tell.
Now aren't you glad I repeated it?
So other than these, have we approved all the licenses that need to be approved today?
You got it.
That's good. It's a production here.
Thank you for doing this, Jeannie. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of people that you have to coordinate.
Yes, we could not have done this without you. Thank you. This,
Yes, you can.
She did, there is a ring around my neck because she grabbed me earlier from all those
I think I
questions.
hit you.
She did. And bruised.
Bruised.
Sue the town.
I gotta wait for the whole, all right, thanks.
All right. That's a lot of fun.
what is next on our agenda? Things moving. Next is consideration of the intermunicipal funding agreement. You want to give us the background on that, David?
Yes, there's a, last year, we signed an intermunicipal agreement for capital funding for school capital projects. It was intermunicipal agreement with Dover, and it basically allows Dover to fund the capital projects one way, and Sherborn to fund them a different way. So if Dover wanted to pay cash for their capital projects, they could, and we could borrow at the same time. Last year, it was a one-year agreement for just that capital purchase, and we wanted to pursue the same agreement for this year, so this agreement is good for 1 year. It's similar to last year's. It's been drafted up, and it's gone through town council, and town council approved it to form. And so we were reviewing it tonight. Unfortunately, the school reps couldn't appear this evening, so we would just be reviewing it and maybe mark any questions that we needed to ask of council or the school department, and have them in on another night if you wanted to ask them questions directly about it.
I have a couple of comments, if I could.
Yes. Thank you.
First of all, this agreement includes the Durensis Caruso language in paragraph 3, which I'm going to read because I think it should make everyone feel quite comfortable. It says that in paragraph 3, the town of Sherborn's obligation to pay its share of the costs is expressly made contingent upon appropriation of Sherborn's allocation of said costs under Section 2 of this agreement by the Sherborn 2015 Annual Town Meeting. And if the Sherborn 2015 Annual Town Meeting votes that such appropriation shall be funded through the issuance of bonds or notes contingent upon the approval of a Proposition 2.5 so-called ballot question, the town of Sherborn's obligation to pay its share of the costs is also made contingent on the approval of the Proposition 2.5 so-called ballot question for this amount at the Sherborn 2015 annual town election. If, in the absence of a town meeting appropriation by either member town of its allocated costs, or if the appropriation in either member town is contingent upon the passage of a Proposition 2.5 so-called ballot question, the absence of approval of the Proposition 2.5 so-called ballot question in either such member towns shall operate as disapproval of the proposed expenditure, and this agreement shall be of no force or effect. So we have an agreement that says that if the voters approve the money, the agreement will operate, but if the voters don't approve the money, it will not operate.
And we've called out Sherborn in that fashion, just to be particularly clear for our own people that we've got these rights, right?
Yes.
Because the rest of that says the same thing in a general sense, applicable to Dover, but I agree, if your thought was it's important just to make it abundantly clear for us, that's probably a good thought.
What are we
Yes,
spending this money on?
This is regional schools, Elliot. Regional schools.
Schools, okay.
Yeah, and of course, we haven't even seen the budget yet, so this number that's in there, we really haven't discussed that
It's
number.
in no particular item, just general.
I thought I had the floor
They'll
here,
tell us numbers, I'm sorry, Paul, go ahead.
and we went to public comment before. Anyway, the second point I wanted to make was that I want to draw attention to the statement that the district plans to spend $358,000 to pay costs of major equipment and building improvements. The $358,000 is a list of items that were included in the notice of intent. It contains a number of specific items. I don't have that in front of me, but the proportion to be allocated amongst the parties was indicated somewhere in here.
Yep.
Uh,
Up in number 2, Paul, second
Paragraph
page,
number
item 2.
Yeah.
Yes, of which 54.45%, equaling $194,931, is allocable to the town of Dover, and 45.55%, which equals $163,069, is allocable to the town of Sherborn, which is the allocation using the formula that's under the district agreement. So this number is contingent upon, again, it being the number that ends up being, going through the process of the warrant committee in Dover, the advisory committee here in Sherborn, the actual vote at town meeting, and the actual vote at the ballot box. It's possible the number might change, hopefully downward if it does change, but it is possible the number might change. So our approval of this ought, I think, to be a general conclusion at this point, a general approval, rather than specifically down to the dollar. I also point out that in the opening paragraph, there is some blanks, and that includes the votes of the school committee, which apparently they haven't voted, and the votes of Dover, which apparently haven't voted, and the town of Sherborn. So to some extent, we're being asked to vote on this first, the way this thing is presented, as the first party to vote on it. I sometimes feel more comfortable being the last rather than
I
first.
think I'd rather see the school committee voted first before we voted. Because if the school committee doesn't
We're not being
I don't
asked
think
to
you
vote
need to
this
vote this
tonight, are we?
tonight. No.
We're-
I think they would prefer to,
Get our
Be here.
input, our feedback.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Understand. What does this
I
say,
get what
draft
Paul's doing.
2314?
I think that they must have not cleared that out from the last
Okay,
edit.
all right, so it's not that we've just carried over an old form. The other comment I would make is that earlier, I think it was several months ago, I was meeting with the superintendent and a member of the Dover Board of Selectmen, and the thought then was, the request then was that we consider doing an agreement for multiple years. It looks like that request has gone by the wayside, or?
No, I think I thought that the last request that we would continue the same agreement that we had done last year, which was a one-year agreement. So I think that's why it was preceded as a one-year agreement.
Is this something that you pulled together, David, or our town council did, or is this something that, I
No,
thought
this
we got
was-
this from the school committee?
Yeah, it came from the school.
Okay, and so the school committee, I guess, has turned around and decided we're just going to do it a year at a time again?
No, I believe that we had talked that we were doing 1 year. If you want them to do a multiple year one, I think we would have to convey that to them.
I don't know.
Well,
You could be right there. I don't recall having that discussion.
Yeah, no, I think here, the questions I have on this are what has changed from what we had agreed upon last year? Just like know any differences besides the dates and the numbers. Because my recollection was there might have been a term clause in there, for example, that we don't see here. The question as to, we are being asked to sign an agreement which is specifically related to this year's capital request, which is then brought to the voters.
Yes.
And so even if we don't have a term in there, we're still dealing with this year's number. And that this year's number is subject to change, as Paul says, when all is said and done, before we get to town meeting and after advisory and warrant and so forth, get at it. Presumably, it is part of their 5-year plan that we had looked at last year, and they had different amounts over the next 5 years. This was one slug of that. And I'd be curious to see how that fits to what we thought we were looking at for this year.
I think you had, when we pulled up the capital articles, when we were reviewing the NOIs, you did have questions about.
So those are the same questions on that amount. And the other part of it is that some of these items that are included in the list, as we saw last year, weren't technically capital items, and separately, but almost similarly, were not bondable. So that has an influence on whether it's part of that number or whether it's a maintenance item, is really what that boiled down to. Then the critical question for us is, we have a date here of July 15th, 2015, to be able to come up with pony up the money, our share of the money. And so presumably, we would do that through short-term borrowing or some such, David? And that would fall on whomever is the treasurer at that point in time. So we're dealing with approval of this in May, early May, and having money essentially within about 2 months by perhaps someone else functioning in the treasurer role in some fashion, yet to be determined. But, so it's, not, I guess it'll be helpful when we have to approve this to get real satisfaction that we can actually pony up the money
You
at the
want to put a
time.
different date in there, like August?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to, I don't know. I don't know if it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, let me ask something about that also. I mean, a different date is one idea. The other idea is, doesn't the regional agreement already provide for us to pay our share, and there are probably terms by which we have to pay our share in the regional agreement?
No, the way that, typically under the regional agreement, our share of a capital item is our share of the annual debt service burden, basically.
They do the borrowing.
They do the borrowing.
We don't do the borrowing.
See?
And so this is just so we can do the borrowing individually?
Yes.
Well, it's really more to accommodate Dover's desire to pay for their share out of free cash.
Yeah, free cash.
Yeah.
So the region would actually do the borrowing.
No, they're not going to do the borrowing on this.
Not under
Right,
this, the only way we could do this legally, if I could put my lawyer's hat on for a minute, we can't borrow money for a regional project, but we can borrow money to
Pay our share.
to pay our share of this IMA. So we are funding this IMA through borrowed funds. Or if we choose to use free cash, we can use free cash. Free cash will be available immediately after town meeting.
That's right.
Borrowed money has to wait for July 1, the start of a new fiscal year. So the borrowing would be over that 2-week period.
2 weeks, yeah.
But probably they wouldn't need them. The reason why I suggested a different date, they're not going to have all the work done
Right.
within 2 weeks. They essentially need the money to pay the bills as the work gets done. And the work gets done over a year.
Yeah.
So from a cash flow standpoint, why would we want to pay it by any specific date rather than, encumber it and make it available when it's needed?
Well, that's how we did it the last time.
No, I know, we have a date in it from the last time around, but I'm just thinking along the lines of what you were thinking, which is if they don't need the money yet, why are they holding our money until they need it?
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to do a one-year deal was to see, does it work?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I believe
Think it worked.
the one-year deal worked.
Yeah.
And it had the same July 15th date in it. And so it happened, we went through it, it was uneventful. It worked. No one came to the board with complaints that they needed.
But we haven't gone out and raised any debt to pay for what we did, so we must have done it, some internal borrowings of some sort? Short term? I mean, I don't know how we paid this. So there's the question, just to figure out, how did we do it last year, so we know what the town is in for this year? I'd just be curious to...
We did
to
do
know
a
that.
Prop 2.5 override.
We did do the override. The question is,
How'd we get the money?
where'd the money come from?
Had to have borrowed it, that was the authorization.
Right, but how? In other words, I don't believe that amount was, the last financing we did was the 3.5 million or whatever it was before last year's town meeting,
On
right?
that, there was,
That was a refinancing, and a bunch of stuff was combined. And going forward, the fire truck and that C&D truck and perhaps last year's piece of this and this year's piece of this would be pulled together into something, and any other stuff, if the library thing goes through and whatnot, so.
And there was a
You know what
short-term-
I'm saying?
So what do you
But,
want
no, I'm just
to do?
asking,
More information?
get more information.
Yeah.
But on the face of this, the substance of it, I see nothing.
So how about if we
earth-shattering.
move, if I made a motion to move approval of the concepts set out in this agreement,
I'd still have questions, Paul. I'd like to actually, have my questions now, and maybe we can discuss them and
Okay.
resolve my questions, but one,
so take no action right now, defer this to...
well, let's just
next
continue
meeting.
our discussion for a couple seconds. The way this sets up now, instead of paying our share on an annual basis based on the capital expenditures that are actually made that year, we're paying upfront for capital expenditures that are going to be paid over a period of years by the regional school committee, and we're doing it at the 2015 split. So that works out in our favor if we think that down the road, our share would be higher, and we're getting away with paying less. And it works against us if we think down the road, our share would be lower, and we're actually, paying more because we're fronting the amounts. And I guess that's something, I don't know if anybody's thought that through, or if there's a way to have an adjustment clause or something so it works out more fairly in the end. But I did notice on that NOI, a number of those capital items it talked about were going to be spent over the next however
Several
many years.
Yeah.
Okay, and yet that's going to be encumbered by us and spent by us this year because they're asking us to borrow this year.
Well, how about dividing that into two pieces? First is, this agreement locks in this year's breakdown. That's
Yeah.
paragraph 2.
Yeah.
A second paragraph says the payment's going to be made on a certain date. What if we go with the current division between the two towns, because we're doing the deal now, we're appropriating the deal now, but say that we will pay it not on a fixed lump sum up front, but as the project happens and they identify specific bills to be paid, we pay it over that period of time.
That's a good idea, but that's slightly different than what you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that,
It's
I
our
think
share.
that gets at my first concern, which is the cash flow concern.
Right.
It doesn't get at the other concern, which I don't even know if it's a concern. This may be,
Right.
this may work out. I haven't checked what the demographics are and what we're likely to be
I suspect it
doing
works in our
5 years
favor.
from now. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's probably, I should probably just stop saying anything about it before they start watching our meetings. No, that's,
That's why I didn't include it. And it's also, that's why I'm trying to say, your real point, I think, is the cash flow.
the cash flow of money is the more important point because we actually are tying up a lot of money
Yeah, we're
for things that
borrowing
might not
money,
happen for a
the
few years.
interest rates.
Exactly.
They have the money sitting in their bank account, they're getting paid
That's
interest
right.
for it.
Right.
But there's an inherent fairness that because we're voting it now, that it should be allocated. There has to be a formula to allocate it. And so it should be allocated now so the voters know what that percentage is.
What the number is, I get it.
If it's a changing number, then our voters don't know if they're getting a pig in the poke, whether it works for us or against us. We may be thinking we're appropriating 163,000, but it may turn out to be double that because the numbers changed so dramatically over time. Or it may end up being half of that.
Mhm.
This fixes the amount. Everybody knows what they're voting. So it's fair to the two communities.
I think we wouldn't want to do this with projects that weren't scheduled to start in the current year. And I couldn't tell from the NOI what they were saying about that, because they did say, and I don't have it in front of me, but they did say that these projects were, the capital items were for funds to be expended until, through fiscal year something, 19 or 20 or 18 or something else. So,
As you might recall, they first came to us and had considered, both the regional and Pine Hill, of trying to do the whole 5-year plan up front and fund it up front and split it. And we were all uncomfortable, I think advisory was uncomfortable with that big nut.
Yeah.
And so they did spread it out over, so they've already kind of split it up over the 5-year period, the full amount they were looking for, and they wanted the freedom and flexibility, if I recall correctly, to be able to do different projects as the time was right.
so they're
So-
funding one project, but they might do something else. if
That's
they can-
right, yeah.
It's more
if
timely. I mean, I remember I do like the fact that they've scheduled these items out over a period of time.
Yeah.
It's a model for, and
Other-
the Pine Hill Committee has done that too.
Right.
It's just a model for how we should be doing these things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. All right. So I'm comfortable saying in spirit, with that modification that Paul suggested, or at least considering that modification, that I'm comfortable with this approach.
Regard to the modification, so am I. But with regard to the modification, how do we communicate that? Do we ask David to
I think you
suggest
should-
a modification?
Yeah, I think you should broach it to him, David, yeah. I mean, you've had that discussion. Who are you dealing with over there, Steve Bliss or Lieutenant?
Yeah, Steve and Rick Manley, the bond counsel, and
Okay.
Barbara are the three that have been involved.
It really would be paragraph 3, that instead of shall pay its respective share of the costs of the project to the district on or before July 15, 2015, we'd strike that and say, pay to the district as the district certifies to us that
Funds have been expended.
funds have been expended. Yeah, that sounds good. We can go with that. That's what we
It's
have a
good.
high-powered
Yeah,
lawyer.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I like
That's
that,
good.
yeah.
Good job, yeah, that's good. All right. Do we need a vote on this, David, or this is just more of a sense of the board at this point?
No, it was just to review. I mean,
Yeah.
we wanted to take a look at it, but they're not, they weren't available to come in.
Yeah, no, and I know I was pushing you on this a little bit, but I just feel like we've got so many things to do before town meeting that we ought to be knocking off the ones that
Right,
don't
right, right.
involve a lot of logistics, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good.
No, I think it helps to have a look at it before.
So now we're up to routine business, and I don't know, we did reschedule the police department discussions, so is there anything else we need to discuss tonight on that?
No, I haven't changed the updated checklist, but as soon as actually, there haven't been any changes to the last time that we looked at the checklist. And then for personnel staffing, still interviewing people for the town accountant position. Somehow the ad ended up on monster.com, and it's not canceling out, so I'm continuing to get applications.
Is that good or bad?
I'm reviewing them. The deadline was the 12th, but, I'm still opening them all up, responding to them all, looking at them, and, there were a couple of decent candidates that still needed to talk to on the phone. So nobody's been ruled out. But I still hope to wrap that whole thing up, and
So right now, you have sort of a top-tier candidate or two, right?
Right.
And the challenge is the funding of that top-tier candidate by moving things around and
Right.
I don't know what else in terms of the budget. And we haven't seen any of the budget numbers that are going to be, that need to be submitted by 12/31, right? Isn't that the
Right.
date? So
Right.
January 2nd.
Hopefully
So,
we'll see them on the 30th.
so hopefully we'll
Yeah.
see those on the 30th. Won't give us much time to do much, but nonetheless, to the extent that this is, this is a great opportunity to get strength in that part of the world here.
It's if I have to make reductions elsewhere to fund this position, that's going to be real tough. We have, basically, if you look at all the selectmen budgets, there's about, and given the 1.5%, it's about $65,000. Police overtime blows that out right out the bat. So-
If it's included, and that was still an up-in-the-air question with
Right.
the area of advisory, right? Whether
Right.
that's in our 1.5%, in the 1.5% of the selectmen budgets.
Well, that was brought up in discussion of the affordability of what we could put towards this position.
Yes.
It was brought up that, well, we're already going to be tapping out for, or asking for coverage of police overtime. So if I have to balance out this,
Well, I think part of what,
These aren't
You-
silos, though, David. I mean,
no,
this can't be...
you're going to need our support
Right.
to do what you want to do in that position. That's really the
Right.
key, and we have to make sure we have our ducks in a row on that.
Right. And I think we're all in agreement where we want to go with that position.
I mean, I think it's important to pay the police overtime so our town is safe. It's important to have somebody who knows how to add and subtract and can be helpful as a town accountant.
Right.
And it's probably more important to have those things, whether they're all combined under our budget or not, than it is to have, an increase in some of the other budgets in the town that,
Right.
that aren't under this office. It just
Right.
is.
Right.
And so, that's, advisory has that hard job, but I don't think we
Right.
should think that we are restricted to a silo just because those two budgets happen to come under the Board of
Right.
Selectmen.
This is a,
We're restricted to what was the word? Silence?
No, I said
Silo.
silo. I don't think we should be treat those as if we're siloed with those, that we're just only able to think about things that are within our purview,
Yeah.
when you think about where money's going to come from.
it's funny because the town, ever since I've been here for 2 years, has demanded this be addressed, has been looking for this financial, analytical abilities to be brought forward in whatever fashion, and now the opportunity is there, and we're trying to do it. Everywhere I go, there's pretty much support of this is, we've been looking for this, we've been waiting for this, it's good that the selectmen are taking care of it now, and, but there's a financial
This
impact.
is a role that
That's-
can grow. I mean, the individuals that you're talking to have a lot of growth potential, and so the top candidates that are on your list there
Right,
can grow as we envision the growth in what the town needs.
right. I mean, they cover the accounting base, but they can, they also have experience in, management,
Financial management and
everything.
analysis and all that
contracting, human
stuff, all
resources.
related to Because the reality is, that a lot of people spend a lot of money to have this town run, and the last thing we need is a weak link
Right.
in how that's done.
Right.
And so it's good that we're moving in the right direction.
One of the rules for small towns is that whoever we hire probably will be doing multiple jobs. You're both the chef and the bottle washer and the floor sweeper, not just somebody who's narrowed by working at bigger towns to very highly defined, high-level tasks. They really here got to do a whole variety of things, because we don't have a big financial department.
Right.
There's a large
Getting
demand
smaller
on
every
it.
day, too, it seems.
There's a large demand on that person to be assisting us in our office, assisting the selectmen, assisting all the departments, outside entities like, Leland Farms or any other
Right.
community groups that are out there, SOS. And then they also have to maintain close contacts with the school business manager and the school department,
Wait, just back up a
capital
second.
budget,
They're
advisory.
assisting SOS and other private groups?
Well, they're a resource. We get public information requests from,
Oh, okay, public. But
Yeah.
the point is, we hire an employee. The employee should be working for the town,
Well-
not for private groups.
no, but these private groups all need information from the town, just like every union in town or in the school department requests information. We get financial demands from just average citizens just looking for information from the town, and somebody's got to pull those together. We support advisory in putting together their budget models. We support them, Jeannie putting together the whole warrant and the book for them. There's a lot of financial support that we do that this position is going to need, and
Yeah, and the strength of the person, hopefully they'll be asking the right questions at all times, so that when, not dopes like us, but folks like us
folks.
have questions, that answers can be forthcoming.
Right.
Right.
The-
Or anticipated.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
The way I've put it to them is that, they're expected to be attending meetings wherever major financial things are being discussed, whether it's advisory, the selectmen, or capital budget. And we would be doing the second meeting of the month would be a financial meeting here. They'd have to be presenting a simplified monthly report, and then a more advanced quarterly report, and then an annual report. Free cash has got to be certified well above what the selectmen policy is, which is October 31st.
Where
So-
are we on that?
Monday, there's a meeting with the DOR and the town accountant to review those numbers, so it is not certified.
But has it been submitted to DOR?
They're coming down to, it's submitted to DOR, and then they come down and discuss it in person.
How
So
much longer after that does it get certified?
I've seen it a couple of days, and I've seen it weeks after that kind of
Well, if it's
visit.
next Monday, it's probably going to be weeks.
I would say that they're probably not busy with
In
other
January.
communities right now doing free cash, so
Yeah,
we might,
we might look out.
yeah.
Well, also, the world changes at the state at the end of the year, too. So I don't know how many
Yeah.
of those positions are political positions or positions that are subject to changing, but,
The DOR reps, it's Andrew Nelson that we've had, and I've used him in 3 different communities for, 12 years,
he's
so.
been around.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good.
And then this free cash, the Schedule A still needs to be signed off on and submitted, and so there are things that
Okay.
there's room for improvement for the whole organization.
Well, it's just an exciting, critical position, an opportunity here to,
Right.
That's really what it is. It's
Meet a lot of
it's an
needs.
opportunity to do some of the things that people have wanted to do for a while.
Right, right,
Opportunities don't always come along.
right, right. So that's, that as far as staffing. Again, the new building commissioner, he's been on board for a couple of weeks now. He took over quite a backlog. He's worked that down. I've gotten a lot of compliments, a lot of calls from people. The other department heads enjoy working with him. He's been very responsive to any last-minute things that have come in, answering calls anytime, day or night, weekends, responding to emails. So that was a very good hire. So that's all I had on. The only other thing I had to note was we did take delivery of the police department's Tahoe. So you'll see a different chief's vehicle in the parking lot. And that was approved at the 2014 annual town meeting in May.
And that's, you open up the door and it turns into a Batmobile or something, I mean, it's got all sorts of
It's a hover.
kit in the trunk there, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
It's a hovercraft. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure the police would. Sure the chief would love to give you a tour of it.
Yeah. I'll
He's
bet.
been riding around in the parking lot with the lights going. So, yeah. So that's all I had.
Okay. Is there anything, any minutes we need to approve? Is there any selectmen business? Is anybody dying to say something?
I'd say something, which
Okay.
is that we're not going to meet until after there's a holiday, so I wanted to wish everyone the very best season's greetings and holiday cheer.
Here.
Likewise. It's good. Good. On that note.
What about the last item?
Do we have we do have a warrant item, yes.
Do you want to set a meeting? Do you want to?
We should set the meeting
Yeah.
time for 12:30, right? The date, 12:30, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, and that's Tuesday, and the time would be the same time? Is everybody
Sure.
okay with 6 o'clock? Okay.
Well, could I make a friendly amendment?
Yes.
I mean, you were talking about getting a head start on the budget stuff, but if that turns out not to be schedulable because while we're available, nobody else is available, and nothing has happened, and so on, can we then defer to the 5th?
Yeah, we could carry it over, but
In the least,
these are budgets that are originating with you, right?
yeah, we have 5 or 6 already ready for you.
These aren't
to review
budgets
on the
where we need to
5th.
have personnel in here to talk with us, are they?
Right. These are your budgets that we'll
Okay.
look at on the 30th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, if, I'm open to not meeting also. I just thought that we tend to always have too much stuff to do, and we tend to, need to catch up all the time. And I thought if we could try to at least start out the year ahead, or at least on schedule, we might not fall behind until February.
It was going to be about a 17-day window if you didn't put something else
okay.
in there.
All right, so we'll do that. It'll be a quick meeting, hopefully.
So we'll meet on the 30th, and do you want to change the January 5th to January 8th, or leave it on the 5th?
I have another meeting on the 8th.
The 8th is the Thursday?
Yes.
That's why I think that may be why we set it for the 5th.
We can leave it the 5th?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we've advanced on
I'm
that.
getting the evil eye from Diane over here, too, so.
I have the 5th already booked completely.
Yeah, so I mean, that's easy turnaround. We'll just be adding items to the 30th.
Okay.
Didn't we just schedule a hearing for a change in the common victualler's license for the 5th?
That's for the
We
5th.
did, yeah.
So if we,
I'm not changing it. That came from the other end of the table, not me.
No, I was just verifying that's, yeah. So we'll, December 30th at 6 and January 5th at 6.
Can we talk now about the withheld
Yes.
check, David? And you and I have talked privately about this a little bit. Do you have
Yeah.
more information?
Yeah, this was a request from Corey Lincoln for the Leland Board of Trustees. It had a request, I think it was for $18,000 or $19,000, and it included some generator work, and it was items that were paid out of their operations account that were eligible to be paid from the maintenance reserve fund that, the revolving fund that the town holds. So there wasn't, while they paid the amounts out of their operations funds, we're replenishing the amount in their operations fund, but they originally were eligible to be paid from this maintenance reserve fund.
And why did they choose not to pay it originally from the maintenance reserve fund?
Apparently, they just waited until they paid the full generator amount, which they were paying, I guess, in portions out of their operations account, instead of sending the requests over to reimburse each payment. That generator had to do with a DEP requirement that related to the water.
Yeah, the pump or
water
something,
system.
yeah.
So all those bills were basically related to the water. They were water testing and the Whitewater contract for maintaining the system, and then this generator system that was added on.
And that's what I don't understand, but you told me earlier that this is a maintenance and capital account, not just a capital account, but
Well,
the way I think of those accounts is as a sinking fund to do big things like roofs and other common area type issues, if they needed a new well or something in that maintenance, something that's a routine maintenance wouldn't typically come out of an account like that.
Well, the way it was set up, it is a maintenance revolving account. It's not their capital put-away account, and I don't...
Is there a capital put-away account?
I don't think so.
Have they made all the payments that Peter identified earlier?
No.
Well, that's the question I
No.
have, is where we're at on those. No,
No.
so to that point, Paul, one question I had was, on this account out of which these funds are supposedly going, they've been paying that $460 a month or whatever, which does not
Right.
reflect the CPI, and we know the CPI amount, I think you had calculated, to catch up is 17 grand. So that's an open item, I think, that you have yet to work out with anybody over there on that. But
Right.
are they current on what they have been paying, the monthly amounts they've been paying? A couple of times in the past, it seemed like there was several months of catch-up that had to take place. And I'm just curious if we did find out if they're reasonably current on that piece.
They should, they were current on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
then
that's
the
not
other,
coming out of this account?
that's what goes into it. See what I'm saying? So.
They were-
for
they-
Oh, they're
funds
coming out
that
of payments that
account-
go into it,
That
gotcha.
go into it, yes. And then the other piece, Paul, is the annual $1,071 or whatever it was. That's 14 grand worth or thereabouts. That's also another piece to be
Calculated in a...
figured out and negotiated
And that's town
over
money,
there.
and
That's
whether, and
town-
whether it's
that's-
set aside for them or not is kind of
No,
up to
that's
the town.
town money.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
But
right.
in other words, if the town decided that would be what they draw on for some of these longer-term expenses, that might be a reasonable assumption, but we don't have the money. They've never given us the money.
Right, but that was the town's pure rent.
Understood.
Everything else was money for them to put into this account for us to hold on their behalf.
And I'm just following up on
For
a,
purposes to be, which are identified in those agreements. And then, so your fundamental question, I think, is the request for these funds right now in this warrant article, does that comply with the agreement's list of things, approved payments? I think that really is the question.
that's exactly where I was
Well,
going.
half the amount were what is routinely paid out on that Whitewater contract and whatever testing they've been doing, because
Well, that's what
it's
they've been doing,
maintenance
but I
money.
guess the question more precisely is, should they have been doing it, and should they continue to do it? They're taking what sounds to me like a monthly, unless I'm misunderstanding this is a monthly service contract, basically.
Right.
Somebody shows up and makes sure that they've got clean water and that everything is, greased and oiled and whatever else it needs to be, and then they go away and they come back in another month, and every month
Right.
they get cut a check, or every 3 months, or however it's done. That's
Right.
typically not the kind of thing you pay out of, that's a routine expenditure. It's
Right.
not something you pay out of a sinking fund that's either a capital sinking fund or, an extraordinary maintenance type approach. If they needed to have their roofs reshingled, or if there needed to be something done to repave the parking lot or whatever it is, those are different things. But a guy shows up and cuts the lawn every week, that's not a capital item, and I don't think somebody who's servicing a well is a capital item just because the well itself is a capital.
Right. I have to go back and look at the lease, but I don't know how often the capital is referred to, but Corey specifically was referring to it as a routine maintenance reserve
Okay.
revolving.
It's in the end,
Corey okayed this?
It came from Corey. The
But she's
request
not
for
a- she's
payment
not a-
came
no
from
longer a
Corey.
trustee.
I understand, but she has been involved with this for 10 years or so, whatever long it's been, and she thought it was okay.
The memo came from her, signed by her, with the attached receipts for reimbursement to
Yeah, but
their...
we had a meeting, and it was several months ago, in which we learned a lot of things, and there's probably stuff we haven't learned yet. But one of the things we learned was, there are a lot of things that need to be done over there, and there's not a lot of money to do them. And the money that there is to do them is in this account.
Right.
So if the approach is, we're not going to have any fees, any monthly payments that are any higher than they've ever been, we're just going to keep drawing down the maintenance account so we can pay these routine expenses, I'm
But
not
see-
okay with
but
that,
see, I
because
don't-
somebody is going to have to make up the difference when it comes to, when something really bad happens.
Right.
And they do need an extraordinary repair.
But my point is that we have people living there, and we have a system that's set up, that's been working, and I don't want to do anything retroactive. If you and Peter feel that this is not to be paid out of this account, I'm okay with that, but I want it to be prospective and say to them, hey, whatever's gone on in the past, we're going to do something different going forward. But we got a bill that's been sitting around for a while, and I'm inclined to pay it.
Well, this is the exact discussion I wanted to have, Paul. I don't disagree with you, but we had to air this discussion. We had to have a reason to have this discussion, and this is a point that we've got to address, or,
Well-
the new trustee has to address, or somehow has to be addressed.
But it was
I
set
honestly
up...
don't think it's something the Board of Selectmen should be meddling in, but I'm just concerned it's going to come
Right.
back and bite the town, because we saw that there were some concerns about, over the long term, having enough funding in this account to pay what needs to be done.
Yeah, I don't know how it was, or what the intent was originally set up. It appears that it was just set up to take care of the maintenance of the pieces that the town was involved in, not with capital projects of roof replacements and that kind
And
of thing.
that's a different sinking account?
think there was
They
one.
have to have their own, it's
Yeah.
not ours.
Okay.
It'd be helpful to look at those agreements. There were 2 or 3 different categories of money. One was the $1,071 of rent that hasn't been done. The other is this one, which is for a variety of things. And then the separate one, the last one was sort of, if in fact the roof goes bad and we have to pay for it, we can put a lien on their properties.
That's right,
so
but
that
you would,
they pay.
you would hope to not get to that point.
You would
because-
hope to not get to
Because
that point.
ordinarily, there would be a fund that was
That's
set up
correct.
that the
That's correct.
trustees maintain.
That's correct.
The association maintained.
That's
Right.
And
correct.
so, do you agree with David, in your memory, is this account we're talking about now for things that the town is involved in, like the well,
Well,
specifically?
I think they've used it for the well. Now, I don't know what one means by town is involved in, except because,
I
but
mean, we're
we-
holding the money. That's,
Well,
No, but
other
you're
than
talking
we're
about
holding the
capital
money.
items that the town was involved in, as distinguished from building related. And
right.
so what is that? That's the septic system in the well? Is that what you're?
Yeah, just the stuff in the ground.
That's, the past practice has been, money has been used for those types
Right.
of
Okay.
things, yes. And I think that's consistent with the terms of the agreement, if I remember
Okay.
it correctly.
Good. Well,
You know,
that
so
answers
I don't
the
have a
question.
problem with this particular thing, but I think your point is very well taken, that this is, the well is going dry,
Is that a fun?
Right.
and we already know there's stress points that they're experiencing over there
They
on their
did do-
own with financing and so forth, so,
They opened up some sort of line of credit for doing some of the capital repairs that they did.
That's great. That's really good.
But I don't know if the capital line of credit was extended to them from their property management company, not Leland Farms. And the word is that they don't, Howden Management is no longer their property management company. So I'm not sure who they're using as a property management company now.
All right, yeah.
If they're using any.
We're speculating at this point. That's not, I mean, I don't know that we should go down that road
Okay.
in this meeting.
But my 2 cents is to release this check because of the expectations, right or wrong, that have been out there, and the fact that Corey Lincoln, our trustee, or former trustee, but the trustee at the time, okayed it for payment. So at least to carry out what she was trying to do and to maintain the expectancy that people have, I would want to pay this bill.
It sounds like it's properly coming out of this account from
Right.
what David and
Yes,
Peter are
sounds
saying.
like it.
I
So
think
I'm comfortable with that. I just think that it would be in everybody's interest, including the folks at Leland Farms, that we figure this stuff out collectively sooner rather than later.
And
But yeah, I mean, I'll move to approve that item if that's what I need to do, or I'll withhold my, do we need a vote, or do I just withhold my withholding?
Withdraw it.
Withdraw my withholding.
I don't know, they never got that specific in the
All right, so
bylaw.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye, okay, pay the bill, David.
Okay.
And the trustee, Corey is no longer trustee?
Yeah, and we have had, Rick Novak has filed papers with the Secretary of State's office, and once that is acknowledged by the Secretary of State, I guess we will have the authority, or he will confirm the authority in the Selectmen to appoint another trustee.
Understood.
Mr.
I have
Taylor?
a question
Yes.
before you adjourn.
Okay,
Right now,
yes?
okay, we mentioned New Year's Sherborn Inn, and they have not requested an extension of their hours. Is that correct?
That's what we understand. We haven't done that yet. No.
So you have not approved it.
That's right.
You will not approve it at your 30th meeting?
Well, if they apply for it, we might approve it. I don't know. We haven't had it applied for.
Okay, but you could,
We could.
but if you don't, I think that the police and the building inspector and the Sherborn Inn should be notified that they close up shop at the usual time on New Year's Eve.
I think the issue is that they're in between owners, and so you have prior owners, you have new owners, and I guess the closing is just dependent upon the ABCC approval, which
But it's not going to be till January.
it won't be until January.
So if the current owner wanted extended hours on New Year's Eve, they could apply, and we could hear that, I guess, on the 30th, couldn't we?
Yes.
Well, you have an abutter across the street that's going to complain
Okay.
if they
We're used to that.
yeah, right, what else is new? But I will complain, not that it'll do any good, but I'll call the police. I should call each one of you at midnight and say,
That would be nice of you. Elliot.
say,
Happy New
yeah,
Year.
Happy New
Yeah.
Year. They're in there. What's an abutter supposed to do? Okay. So please notify them and the police that they do not have their opening permit for New Year's Eve. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Elliot.
They can be open New Year's Eve. The question is whether the hours are extended from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. So their standard hours is 1 a.m.
The regular hours are 1 a.m.? I didn't realize that.
I think that's what the
They
case is.
usually
have to look back at
They're
the
usually
form.
out of there by about 11, but
Well, maybe that's why they didn't need to extend their hours this year. Is it in our package, David?
No.
I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago, you gave them the permit. I looked
Oh, the hours
over there,
are
there's
good.
no one there after all.
We just renewed the license, so it's...
Yeah, it should be in here, right?
No,
the
they
hours.
asked for the
1760, 11 p.m. to Thursday, 8 a.m. to midnight, Friday, Saturday.
No?
Midnight.
So midnight on Friday and Saturday. This is a Wednesday.
8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Sunday.
So it's 11 p.m. They're going to have to have an early
Close up shop.
celebration
Close up shop at 11.
under their license. That's what it says.
Okay, so please, I say notify them and the police and maybe the building inspector.
So you may want to call somebody, David, and see if they want the extended hours. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussions? Any motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So we're convening
December 30th at
and
7
January
p.m. and
5th.
January 5th at 7 p.m. Okay?
What time?
6 p.m., sorry. Oh, wait, we don't want to do this again. 6 p.m. Yes.
Both nights.
Yeah, we messed this one up a few weeks ago. We all had a different idea of what time it was. The night we changed the time to accommodate your meeting, we had We had quite a bit back and forth. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. And season's greetings.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, oh, oh.